Everyone loves to listen to a good book, and there are so many wonderful ones to choose, so we decided to bring you this podcast of Stories Come to Life. Each episode features a story from either classic or modern literature, especially chosen to be interesting and exciting to hear. So sit back, relax, and listen to this story come to life. Welcome to Stories Come to Life. This is episode 34, and I am your host, Kathryn Lopez. The 4 stories you will hear today are from the book Ashley Bryan's African Tales. You will hear about adventures of Ananse the Spider, Elephant and Frog, Elephant and Bush Cow, and one of my favorites, How Animals Got Their Tails. These stories all illustrate one or more of the principles of Kwanzaa, often in funny ways. For example, Ananse the Spider may not realize it, but he is providing Crow with a way to become uplifted economically. Other stories illustrate the principles of unity, creativity, purpose, and other values. See if you can figure out some of the principles these stories demonstrate. The Ashley Bryan Center and the publishers have both graciously given permission for these stories to appear on this podcast. Now sit back, relax, and listen to these stories come to life. Ananse the Spider in Search of a Fool. We do not really mean that what we are going to say is true. Hear my account of Spider Ananse and the fish traps. Spider Ananse once lived by the sea. There were plenty of fish in those waters. Yes, there were fish to be caught for those who had traps made and set. But Ananse was not one to be working like that. I'd like to catch and sell fish, he thought. The regular type and the shellfish too. But if I'm to do that, I must hire a fool to make, set, and pull the traps. Spider was sure he'd have no trouble finding a fool. Once he did, he planned to make great catches of fish, which he'd sell in the market for cash. He would keep all the money for himself and grow rich in the fish business. I'll pay the fool a few regular fish, and maybe even some shellfish, he told himself. But as for money, of course the fool will get none. So Spider Ananse set out to find a fool. He walked about the fishing village calling, "I want a fool! I want a fool!" He saw a woman cooking. "I'm looking for a fool," he said. "A fool," she said, mocking him and shaking her wooden spoon. Spider ran off to the shore where on the beach he saw a busy fisherman. "I'm looking for a fool," said Spider. "A pool?" asked the fisherman. "No, a fool," said the Spider. "A tool?" asked the fisherman. "A fool! A fool!" howled Spider as he hurried off. "A fool indeed," he muttered, "but deaf." And everywhere Ananse looked it was the same. No one listened to him. Nowhere could a fool be found. After a long time, Ananse met Osana the hawk. This time, Ananse began in a new way. "Come," he said, "let's go and set fish traps." But Osana had heard that Ananse was hunting a fool to go fishing, so he said, "Oh, I have no need to set fish traps. I have plenty of meat to eat." Later, Ananse met Ananse the crow. "Let us go and set fish traps," Ananse said. "Why not?" said Crow. "I'll go with you." "Wait here," said Spider Ananse, almost bursting with joy. "I won't be long." He ran home to get his knife. While Ananse was gone, Ananse the crow rested in the shade of a silk cotton tree, and when Hawk was sure that Spider was gone, he flew down. "Watch out for Ananse," Osana warned. "Don't go with him on this fish trap setting trip. He's looking for a fool. He wants someone else to do the work, but he plans to sell all the regular fish and the shellfish as well, and keep all the cash from the catch for himself." "Baku," said Ananse the crow. "I did not know, but now I do." "Thank you, Osana. Don't say any more. I will go with Ananse, and we shall see who does the work and who gets the money." Spider Ananse soon returned with his knife. He and Crow set out at once for the bush to cut palm branches for traps. When they came to a palm tree, Crow said to Spider, Ananse, give me the knife. I will go cut the branches. You can sit here and take the weariness of my hard work. Spider replied, Anane, do you take me for a fool? No, I will do the cutting. You will sit aside and take the weariness of my work. So Ananse the Spider did all of the cutting, while Anane the Crow sat aside sighing and yawning in weariness. When Ananse had finished cutting the palms, Anane helped him tie them into a neat bundle. Then Crow said, Ananse, let me carry the bundle. You can trek after me and take the aches and pains of this back-breaking work. Oh, no, said Spider. You must take me for a fool. Here, you help steady the load on my head. I will carry, and you can take the aches. So Crow followed, sighing and yawning, and groaning beautifully every step of the way. And Ananse carried. When they reached the Spider's hut, Crow helped Spider set the load on the ground. Now let me make the fish traps, said Crow. Yes, let me. I'll show you how. You can take the fatigue of my labors. Spider replied, Nay, never. Everyone knows that I'm a great weaver. Leave the trap-making to me. You take the fatigue. Crow chose the most comfortable mat in Spider's hut and stretched out on his back. There he lay, sighing and yawning and groaning and bawling more woefully than ever. Fool, said Spider, have you no sense? Just listen to your moaning. It sounds as if you were dying. Spider Ananse began to spin. He spun and he wove and he made palm mesh for the fish traps. He worked till they were well made and ready to be set in water. Let me carry the fish traps to the water, said Crow. It's your turn to take all the tiredness of all this trap-making. Spider said, No, Anane. None of your tricks. I'll take the traps, and you can take the tiredness of the task. They set out for the shore. Spider walked carefully, balancing the traps. Crow staggered behind him, sighing and yawning and groaning and bawling all the way. At the beach, Crow said, Father Spider, a beast lives in the sea. Let me stand in the water and set the fish traps. If the beast should bite me, then you can take the death. Spider said, Anane, I swear that is not a bit fair. I shall set the traps. If the beast bites me, then you shall die. So Spider Ananse toiled in the sea, setting the fish traps. No beast bit, and Anane watched comfortably. Then the two returned to Spider's hut and slept. The next morning they arose at dawn and hurried down to the sea. They opened the traps and found 2 fish as their catch. Crow said, Ananse, these 2 fish are for you. Tomorrow, when the traps have caught 4, it will be my turn to take them. Spider exclaimed, What a cheat you are! Do you take me for a fool? No, sir. These 2 are yours. Tomorrow I'll take the 4. Anane the Crow took the fish and cooked them. He made a fine dish of fufu and fish, and ate it all himself. The next day, Spider and Crow examined the traps and found 4 fish. Crow said, Ananse, these 4 fish are yours. I'll take the next batch, whatever the catch. With this bait, we're bound to get 8. Spider said, I'm no fool. I withdraw my claim to these 4. You take these, and tomorrow I'll have the 8. Crow took the fish and fried the 4. He made a fine dish of fufu and fried fish and ate it all himself. The next day, when they inspected the traps, Spider counted 8 fish as their catch. Take them, Ananse, said Crow. I'll go back to the hut and wait for tomorrow's catch of 16. Spider said, I'm no fool, Anane. You take the 8 fish. I'll have tomorrow's 16. Crow took the fish and baked the 8. He made a fine dish of fufu and baked fish and ate it all himself. The next morning, 16 fish were caught in the traps, and by now the fish traps were well worn out. Anane the Crow said, Ananse, these fish traps are rotten. They will not catch fish any longer. But each trap will fetch a price in the marketplace. You take the 16 fish and give me the rotten fish traps to sell. Oh, no, said Spider. You take the fish and sell them if you can. I shall sell the rotten fish traps and keep the cash. Crow picked up the 16 fish, and Spider picked up his rotten fish traps. Together they went to the nearby village market. A crowd soon surrounded Crow. People bargained and bid and bought his fish. In no time at all, he had sold the 16. If he had had more, he would have sold more. But he did well just the same, for he had a great mound of gold dust in his feathered purse. When the crowd broke up, Spider Ananse still sat with his unsold traps. Crow said to him, "Don't just sit there with your wares. Take up those perfectly rotten fish traps, and let people discover that you have them. Walk around and talk about your treasured traps. Cry out. Let the villagers hear your voice. Make a loud noise. Don't think you can sell by sitting in silence." Crow's fiery speech so inspired Spider that he leaped to his feet, lifting his traps, and sang out in a burst of pride and enthusiasm, "Rotten fish traps for sale, rare, bedraggled, and old. Treat your son and yourself. Pay in cowries or gold." The village chief was astonished to hear such a ridiculous cry from the marketplace. Never before had his people been so insulted by a stranger. "But where does this fellow come from?" he asked. "Send him to me." Spider Ananse went quickly at the call, calculating a sale in cowries and gold. He was still busy making these calculations when the chief thundered, "Do you suppose this is a village of fools?" Spider trembled. "Your friend Crow came and sold fine fish for a good profit. Did you sit by and not take notice? Then why do you seek to dispose of your useless, rotten fish traps among us?" The chief was so angry that he called his men and said, "Flog him!" Spider Ananse tried to flee, but he tripped over the loose palm strips of his rotten fish traps. As he flailed about to free himself, he became more entangled in the mesh until he was caught like a fish in his own fish traps. As the blows drummed on Spider's back, he cried, "Pooey, pooey, pooey, pooey! Why do they beat poor old me?" Tears of pain flowed from Ananse's eyes. Then suddenly they became tears of shame, for at last Spider Ananse realized that when one seeks to make a fool of another, he is bound to make a bigger fool of himself. This is my story. Whether it be bitter or whether it be sweet, take some of it elsewhere, and let the rest come back to me. Elephant and Frog Go Courting. I never tire of telling the tale of Mr. Elephant and Mr. Frog, who were courting the girls at the same house. Frog and Elephant were enormously popular with the girls at that house. They were thoughtful and generous, and always brought presents of fruit or flowers when they visited. Indeed, everyone who knew Elephant and Frog agreed that despite obvious differences, the two had much in common. They were both very handsome, each in his own way, of course. They both loved the water, and both relished a walk through the forest, especially when the path led to the pretty girl's house. And although they were not the same size, they were the same age. But why go on listing ways in which Frog and Elephant were the same? There are so many, and that's hardly the story. So let's go on. It happened that one afternoon, Frog visited the girls alone. He sat with them near the house, in the shade of a silk cotton tree, and they all sipped cool coconut milk. The girls surrounded Frog and laughed at his witty talk. His conversation was more charming and clever than ever. He felt he was king of the forest. So when Elephant's sweetheart began to speak with great eloquence of Elephant's grace and elegance, at once Frog became angry. He puffed himself up as large as he dared. He swelled with importance and said to her, "You know, of course, that Mr. Elephant is my horse." "Is that true? Is that true?" the girls chorused. They were so excited that they danced around Frog. Well, now Frog felt big, even bigger than Mr. Elephant, and when he left, he hopped off into the forest, as if he owned it all. Elephant came to visit that night. As they saw him coming through the forest, the girls said to his sweetheart, "Look, here comes Mr. Frog's horse." Elephant's sweetheart ran out to meet him. He gave her a basket of wild cherries, a bouquet of wildflowers, a tame hug, and a shy kiss. The girl, however, hardly thanked Elephant at all for this. She was so full of Frog's remark that she simply blurted out, "We heard today from Mr. Frog that you are his horse." "Better that than the other way around," quipped Elephant, and then he laughed uproariously. The girls laughed too, but then they repeated what Frog had said. They obviously believed it. "Now, wait a minute," stammered Elephant. "Me? Me? Mr. Frog's horse?" "That's what he said." "Ridiculous! He was kidding, of course." "Oh, no," said Elephant's sweetheart. "He swore to us that he was serious." Elephant was furious. He fumed and trumpeted and left in a rage. Behind him, he could hear the girls laughing as he went. He felt small, even smaller than Mr. Frog. The next day, Elephant went in search of Frog. He looked everywhere and finally caught him frisking in the river. "Hello, Grandfather," Frog called affectionately. "Want to race?" Elephant could not bring himself to say so much as one word. He simply reached out with his trunk and snatched Mr. Frog out of the water. He set his startled friend down plop on a grass patch. "Now look here, grandson," he said, still shaking with anger, but at least not stammering. "Did you tell the girls that I was your horse?" "What's that?" croaked Frog, hopping up and down. What? Easy there, Grandfather." Frog balled up his fists and advanced on Elephant menacingly. "Nobody accuses me of anything like that." "Calm down, grandson," said Elephant, backing away. He was impressed by Frog's display of anger and innocence. "It was my sweetheart. She said you swore I was your horse." "No, that's crazy," Frog spluttered. "Come along, Grandfather. We'll find those girls and settle this foolishness right this minute." Frog started out ahead of Elephant, but he soon fell far behind. Elephant was anxious to reach the girls, but he wanted to arrive with Frog, so he sat and waited. "Hurry up, grandson," he called. Frog caught up at last, huffing and puffing and limping besides. Oh, what a trail," he whined. "I must have stepped on a thorn. My poor foot's sore. I can't keep up with you at all. I'll have to go home and tend to my foot." "What?" trumpeted Elephant. "You can't turn back now. Grandson, listen, the girls will take care of your foot once we get that remark settled. Hop up on my back. That way we'll arrive together. It won't take long." "Thanks, Grandfather, but I really don't want to be a burden." "Oh, be quiet, grandson. Don't be silly." So Frog hopped up on Elephant's back. Elephant's back was broad, and the ride was smooth. Nevertheless, Frog flopped about, flailing hands and feet as if he were about to fall off. "Grandfather! Grandfather!" he soon shouted into Elephant's ear. "I'll have more than a hurt foot by the time we arrive if I don't get some reins to steady myself up here." Elephant stopped and stooped, and Frog limped off. Elephant wanted Frog to be quick about getting the reins, so he helped Frog pull long tendrils from a tall banyan tree. Frog plaited the tendrils into a strong string, which he bound across Elephant's mouth. Then he limped back into place. "Well, Grandfather, what a difference!" Frog exclaimed as he directed Elephant with the reins. They went on steadily. Suddenly, Frog started twirling his arms as if he'd lost his mind. "My word, Grandfather," he shouted. "We must have hit a cloud of flies and mosquitoes. I haven't seen this many in all my born days. Do stop. I'd better get me a green twig switch to flick off these rascal insects. Otherwise, we'll be eaten alive before we arrive." Once more, Elephant stopped and stooped. Frog limped down and moved slowly to a bush. He broke off a neat twig switch and twirled it gently as he returned to his place on Elephant's back. Frog swished the twig whip in great arcs and held the reins slack until they reached the edge of the forest. Just ahead, by the silk cotton tree, was the house of the girls. "Quick, grandson," Elephant called. "Hop down, we're almost there." Frog pretended not to hear. Instead, he tightened the reins, pinching the tenderest tissues of Elephant's mouth. Elephant reared up in pain, then plunged ahead. But Frog held on. The girls heard the commotion and came to their door just as Elephant, with Frog astride, went racing by. Frog was holding the reins smartly with one hand and whirling the twig whip with the other. When they were well past the house, Frog jerked the left rein sharply and Elephant spun around. As they galloped back, the girls applauded. Really, they had never seen a more dramatic display of horsemanship. Elephant sped with Frog into the forest along the same path they had come from in the first place. As soon as Frog knew the girls could no longer see them, he let go of the reins and flipped himself into the overhanging branches of the tree. "Thanks for the ride, Grandfather Horse," Frog croaked, and he hopped off quickly until he was lost among the leaves. Elephant buffeted and butted and battered the trees. Bananas fell, coconuts fell, mangoes and figs fell, but no Frog fell. Finally, Elephant gave up. All the way home the birds sang, but that did not cheer him up, for in his mind he could only hear the girls saying, "So it's true indeed. Mr. Elephant is the horse of Mr. Frog." There, I have told my tale of Elephant and Frog. Whether good, whether bad, there is nothing to add. I have finished. Why Bush Cow and Elephant are bad friends. Beat the story drum, pum pum. Tell us a big story, brum brum. The one about Elephant and Bush Cow, thrum thrum. And of Monkey the Messenger, pit-a-pong, pit-a-pong. Bush Cow and Elephant were always bad friends. There was good reason why they didn't get along and could never settle their disputes. Elephant was big, so was Bush Cow. They were nicknamed the Big Ones. They walked big, brum brum, and talked big, thrum thrum. It was the big bad talk that got them into trouble. Pit-a-pong, pit-a-pong. Elephant liked to boast about his strength to everyone. He talked himself up and never missed making a slight or a put-down about Bush Cow's strength. When Bush Cow heard that Elephant was bad-mouthing him, he felt ashamed and angry. He knew he was a good fighter, and he feared no one. He told the tale-bearers a thing or two to take back to Elephant. Brum brum. Wherever Bush Cow and Elephant walked, everyone stepped aside. No question about that. But because of the bad words that flew back and forth between them, neither Bush Cow nor Elephant would give way to the other. So whenever they met, they fought. Pum pum. One day the Big Ones met on their way to market. "Step aside and let me pass, Bush Coward," said Elephant, "or I'll braid your horns, brum brum." "Out of my way, Snake Snout," said Bush Cow, "or I'll tie your trunk into knots, thrum thrum." Greetings like that were bound to lead to blows. Elephant landed an opening clout. Bush Cow answered with a cuff, and then the bout was in full swing. Bush Cow butted Elephant in his side. Elephant tripped Bush Cow with his trunk. They tumbled and tussled all over the field, pummeling each other as they rolled. Pum pum, pum pum. A crowd gathered. The village elders were distraught when they saw the torn-up field. They called out, "Stop! Stop! You're ruining the crop! Aye!" It is as the proverb says, when two big ones fight, it is the grass that suffers. Monkey, get closer and tell them to stop. Monkey leapt into the tree nearest to the fighters. He hung from the branches and chattered, "Don't fee-faw-foo fight! It's not bee-baw-boo right!" Monkey's scat talk was understood by everyone, but the big ones wouldn't listen to him. They kept on fighting. Finally, the head chief arrived and stopped the fight. For when the head chief commands, everyone obeys. "What is happening here?" the head chief demanded. Monkey hopped to him with his report. "A fee-faw-foo fight! No bee-baw-buddy-one! No nee-naw, no new! No, not one of the two! Not Bush Cow, I know! Not Elephant, oh! Wee-why-woo, why do they fight? What fee-faw-foo for? Their wee-wah-ree-bop heads are as hard as a door. It's always a draw." "Door, draw," said Elephant. "Suppose he hadn't stuck me with those horns. Ha! I would have won. Thrum thrum." "Won when?" said Bush Cow. "Suppose he hadn't tied my fists with his trunk. I would have flattened him. Brum, brum. Suppose, cried the head chief in disgust. Suppose your head was a doorpost. Everyone laughed. But suppose, said the big ones who were not laughing, suppose we let you settle this dispute between us. We can't. The head chief looked at the field and knew that something had to be done. He conferred with the village elders, then announced the plan. Elephant and Bush Cow will meet to fight in the large open space of the marketplace next market day. Thrum, thrum! This dispute will be settled then once and for all. Brum, brum! Everyone from country and town is invited to come and witness the battle. Pum, pum! The big ones agreed, and all the details of the Battle of the Big Ones were settled. Then the villagers went on their way to the beat of the drums. Prum, prum, thrum, thrum, pum, pum, pit-a-pong, pit-a-pong. When market day of the fight dawned, Bush Cow rose early. He wanted to be the first one there to prove he was no coward. He limbered up quickly, then lumbered along the main road. He heard that Elephant had not yet passed that way, so he took up his position on the road to market, at some distance from town. Bush Cow blocked the road and waited. He became impatient and began bellowing and tearing up the ground. Brum, brum! What have you done with the big one? Have you seen him? Where is he? He cried to everyone who passed. Monkey came along the road and was stopped and questioned. How should I know? Bee-ba-ba-ray big one, said Monkey. I'm a lee-boo-lay-lay monkey. But don't wah-woo wait here. She-ba-doo-boo no. Go on to the square. Chief-a-boop-bop said, Ooh so be do fight there. Bush Cow let Monkey pass, but he paid no attention to what he said. He stood right where he was. He stopped doe, zebra, and wild boar with the same question before he heard Elephant trumpeting in the bush. Thrum, thrum! Elephant was breaking down trees and trampling the bushes in his way. That's how he kept in form for the fight. He came onto the main road to market. There stood Bush Cow, blocking the way. Move on to the square, said Elephant. We agreed to fight there. Bush Cow didn't like Elephant's tone of voice, so he stood his ground and glared at him. Move! Move, Bush Coward, said Elephant. Move me then, Snake Snout, said Bush Cow. Oh me ma moo my, said Monkey. Don't fee-fa-foo fight here. Move-oo-be-doo onto the square. The big ones brushed Monkey aside. They didn't want to listen, and they didn't waste words. They lowered their heads and charged. Poof! That was the end of their promise to fight in the marketplace. A tremendous battle began. The big ones pitched, rolled, and tossed, damaging the nearby farms. The villagers were frightened from going on to the market and hid out of harm's way, hoping the havoc would soon halt. The village elders were shocked when they came on the scene. They couldn't believe the big ones would disobey the head chief's battle plan. Monkey, they said, run, quick, tell the head chief all that's happening here. Monkey had watched the fight from the start, so he knew the message. He set off quickly, swinging through the branches and squealing as he swung. When he stopped a moment to catch his breath, he could no longer remember why he was in such a hurry, where he was going, and what he was going to have to say to whom, which is the forgetful way that monkeys have. Now why, where, to, who, what for? He asked himself. What, where, why, to, who? Shooby-doo, shooby-doo. Monkey danced. Hey, bibby-bop, hey, hey. Suddenly, the message sprang back into his mind. Scooby-dooby-scoo, he sang in delight. He went on as fast as he could go, so that he would not forget the message again. When Monkey reached the head chief's house, he remembered Shooby-doo and Scooby-doo, but nothing more. He hadn't the slightest idea why he had come. Well, he had arrived, and that was important. He could at least act as if he were about important business. Shooby-doo, shooby-doo, he looked busy, yeah. Monkey sat down and engaged in a minute personal inspection of his fur. A minute later, whoop! He jumped onto the roof of the house. Pit-a-pong, pit-a-pong. He caught and ate a bug. Then he swung again to the ground. There he found a stone, and he rolled it around, backward and forward, forward and back, in an aimless sort of way while looking in the opposite direction. Monkey soon tired of this and picked up a stick. He tapped out a rhythm on the stone. Whick-whack-a-whack, whick-whack-a-crack. The stick broke. He flung the pieces into the bushes and flung the stone after them. Monkey hopped onto the veranda and crouched with his head in his hands. He was almost at wit's end when his attention was attracted by a large praying mantis that fluttered past him into the head chief's house. It circled the room with a loud clatter of wings, and then settled on the floor and immediately assumed its usual prayerful attitude. Monkey stalked the mantis carefully and was just about to seize it when the chief caught sight of him and shouted out in a loud voice, "Ha! Monkey, is that you?" At the sound of the head chief's voice, Monkey did a backflip, and Mantis flapped out the front door. "Who? Who?" cried Monkey. "Oh, ya knew me. Yes, sir, it's bout to be me." "What brings you here?" asked the chief. "To see Shooby-Doo you." "Yeah." Monkey cocked his head to one side, trying to look as if he had something wise to add. Actually, he was thinking of nothing. He began chattering nervously about sticks and stones and mantis bones, because everything else had gone out of his head. Pit-a-pong, pit-a-pong. "Well," said the head chief, "if you've nothing more on your mind than that, then help yourself to one of the ripe bananas hanging up in the veranda." Monkey was very fond of bananas, and didn't need to be told twice. He went quickly and chose a large one, then returned to the room. Monkey peeled the banana and bit first one end and then the other, as if that would make it last longer. He studied the banana carefully after each bite. "Monkey," said the head chief, "shouldn't Bush Cow and Elephant be here by now? I've been waiting for them all morning. They promised to meet in the market square for the big battle today." "Yowie!" Monkey somersaulted and came down chattering. "Oh, sure, Shooby-Doo! Sure, Shooby-Doo!" Monkey swallowed the last bit of banana, and after all sorts of scat talk, squeals and grimaces, told the head chief all of the elder's message. "Aha!" said the head chief. "So that's why the market is almost empty today. Thank you for the message, Monkey. Help yourself to another banana. As for Bush Cow and Elephant, I'll see to it that they get theirs. Thrum, thrum." Monkey ate the banana, pleased and impressed with himself. He was sure that there were not many others who could manage a message to match his style. Shooby-Doo, Shooby-Doo. The head chief called for his bows and arrows, and Monkey led him to the scene of the battle. When the head chief arrived and saw the ruined farmlands, he didn't ask questions and he didn't raise his voice. Instead, he raised his arm with the bow and shot first one arrow, then another. Plung, plung. Bush Cow felt a sharp stab in his rump. Wow! Elephant felt a sharp stab in his rump. Wow! The head chief didn't wait. He shot a second volley of arrows and prepared to shoot a third. But Bush Cow and Elephant got the message. They didn't wait for any more arrows to fly. They flew. They plunged into the bush and disappeared. Brum, brum. After that, the head chief refused to have anything more to do with settling disputes between Bush Cow and Elephant. But ever since then, when wild animals fight, they always fight in the bush and not on main roads. Thrum, thrum. Since the big battle between Bush Cow and Elephant was never decided, each still boasts that he is the stronger. Whenever they meet along main roads, they argue. Whenever they meet in the bush, they fight. So to this day, Pum Pum, Bush Cow and Elephant, Thrum Thrum, remain bad friends. Brum Brum, Pit-a-pong, Pit-a-pong. How animals got their tails. If you're talking about the beginning of things, you've got to go way back. Way, way back. Back to the time when the animals had no tails. That's right. In the beginning, Ralovimba, god of the Bavenda, created the animals without tails. He never even gave tails a thought Not in the beginning. When Raluvimba came down from the heavens, he often sat in his favorite place on earth, high on Mount Swawadinda. He'd relax there and admire the world that he had made, the mountains, trees, and rivers, the sun, moon, and stars. He'd say to himself, for in the beginning there was no one to to. That sure looks good. One day, on Mount Swawadinda, Raluvimba lay down in Cave Luvimbi and fell asleep. When he dreamed a dream that animals wandered the earth, and when he awoke, he set to work. One by one, Raluvimba made the animals: elephant and mouse, rabbit and rhinoceros, monkey and ox, lion and fox. The large and the small, he made them all. Raluvimba worked hard to get each one right. Lion's first mane tripped him up, had to be shortened. Goat's first coat was too tight a fit, had to be loosened. It took 2 tusks to complete elephant, and it took a tusk or 2 to do rhinoceros's snout. Mouse was the last and the smallest of the creatures that Raluvimba made. He said, holding Mouse in the palm of his hand. How's that for small? They all chanted back. Small and beautiful. But big or small, the animals had no color at all. So Raluvimba mixed colors from the dye of plants. He took some leftover bristles from hog and made a brush. Then he painted all the animals. Some he painted in plain colors, others he daubed with spots, and on some he painted stripes. Now you're complete, he said. You sure look good. In those days, no people were around. Raluvimba hadn't yet thought of making man, so the animals had no one to fear. They roamed everywhere freely, and fed on plants, shrubs, and greens. They had good appetites, and they had good manners. They never even thought of eating each other. Not in those days. They were vegetarians. The lion lay down with the lamb, and they all lived together peacefully. Everywhere that Raluvimba walked on earth, there were animals to greet him. He was never without company on earth, and he liked that. But his trips through the water and the air were lonely. Nobody in the water, nobody in the air. Raluvimba slept again in Cave Luvimbi, and this time he dreamed of creatures for the water, creatures for the air. He awoke and fleshed fish with scales to flash through the seas. He feathered birds for flight, and tuned their voices to sing sweet songs. Cheered the animals. That's some creating. It sure looks good. Now Raluvimba had friends everywhere. Things couldn't have been better on earth, in the air, or in the sea. When he swam through the depths of the sea, the fish said "Lo" as they saw him go. When he soared way up in the sky, the birds sang "Hi" as he flew by. When he walked on the earth, the animals said "Pleasant day" as he passed their way, and they wiggled their ears. For as you remember, in those days, the animals had no tails to waggle. One day, Raluvimba played with the animals on Mount Shawadinda. They liked seeing him make things, so they circled him and chanted, "O Creator, create, make something new, smaller than mouse, and alive, too." "Give it fine fur," said Fox. "Mark it with stripes," said Zebra. "Don't forget the long ears," said Rabbit. "It will need long ears to wiggle." Raluvimba laughed. He closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. An idea flickered. His fingers spun swiftly in space. Then he cupped his hands and blew into them. When he opened them, there stood Spider, alive and spinning. "Oh, yeah! Now that is small," said Rabbit. "Smaller than Mouse. No long ears, but he sure has a lot of legs." The animals crowded around and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4 more than ours. 5, 6 more than birds. 7, 8 more than fish. Oh, 8 legs, 8, and ain't none of them straight. Spider spun a strand from Raluvimba's fingers and dropped all the way down to the ground, pim, unhurt. "Do it," said the animals. Said Spider, and he twirled back up the strand into Raluvimba's hand. "If you ever need a message delivered to the master, call on me," said the Spider. "I've got connections." Spider's tie to Ralavimba made him feel as important as Rabbit felt about his long ears. Ralavimba was pleased that Spider was accepted by the animals as one of them. He decided to create more tiny creatures. This time, Ralavimba made Fly and his mate, and they multiplied rapidly. And with the insects came trouble. At first, Flies fed on plant juice and dew as Spider did, but between meals they'd sit uninvited on the animals. Now Spider never did that, and even though Fly was light, the animals didn't like being sat on. "Don't sit on me," said Rabbit. "Go live on a tree," said Zebra. "Take your big feet out of my mouth," said Ox. So it went on day after day. One day when Fly was living high on the hog, he got fed up with all the complaints and took a bite out of Hog's hide. To his surprise, he liked the taste. He bit again to make sure, then flew about tasting a few more hides. Not bad," said Fly. "Tastier too than plant juice or dew." Fly told a friend, "If you want a meal with body to it," and word got around. Soon Flies were tasting every animal in sight and sharing their best ideas for beast feasts. "Try this," said Fly. "Taste lion first, then take a bite of deer, and finish with a nip of rabbit. Delicious!" The animals howled when bitten. They shook when tickled. They flinched when pinched. Suddenly, one would leap up into the air, another would roll on the ground, another rub vigorously against a tree. Everyone knew why. The fault was Fly. Finally, the animals could stand it no longer. They called for Spider and asked if he would take a message to Ralavimba. "What's the message?" asked Spider. "Flies are pests. Tell Ralavimba that flies are not fit friends for animals. They're flesh biters and bloodsuckers. Tell him to take them back." Spider didn't waste time. He tested a few strands and found one that led into the heavens. "Aha, so it's you, Spider," said Ralavimba. "I thought I felt a tiny tug at my toe." "Lo," said Spider. He didn't waste time in greetings. "I've a message for you from the animals. They say flies are pests. They bite and they chew us. Yes, that's what they do, and we don't want them around." "What?" said Ralavimba. "I can't take back what I've given. After all, that's life. Don't flies chew leaves for juice and suck dew as you do?" No, no," said Spider. "Flies bite flesh and suck blood. That's the message. They're not fit friends for us. You've got to do something to help and fast. I play free the fly with them when they get caught in my web, so I'm fine, but my friends are frantic." Ralavimba thought, "I can't believe that flies are a flaw in my creation." But there it was, almost in the beginning. A small mistake, a tiny one true, but a bad sign just the same. And man hadn't even been created yet. "Listen, Spider," said Ralavimba. "Instead of playing free the fly, suppose you ate the flies that stuck to your web." "Ew," groaned Spider. The very idea made him sick. He was, after all, a vegetarian, and had never even thought of eating fly meat. "Stop groaning, Spider," said Ralavimba. "I've a better idea. I'll make tails for animals to flick away the flies." Spider sang, "Birds have tails, fish have tails. The bird tail wishes, the fish tail swishes. When's our day for tails with which to flick and switch the flies away?" "Today's Moon Day," said Ralavimba. "Tell the animals I'll come down to Mount Shawadinda tomorrow and make tails for all of them." "Good," said Spider. "Today's Moon Day. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Tuesday's Tails Day." Spider descended quickly and spread the word. When the animals heard the good news, they couldn't wait to choose a tail. They set out at once for Mount Shawadinda. Only Rabbit, who was very lazy, went back to sleep. "Get going, Long-Ears," said Spider. "I know you heard the message." "I don't see you going anywhere either," said Rabbit. "I don't need a tail, but you do," said Spider. "What's the rush?" said Rabbit. "There's lots of time and there'll be lots of tails." "Uh-huh," said Spider. Rabbit yawned and fell asleep. The next day Rabbit awoke to see animals passing by his burrow, wearing the most wonderful tails. Whenever a fly tried to land on an animal, it would swing its tail swoosh, swish, flick, and the fly would take off. Animals with tails? A new scene on Earth. Rabbit had to admit it sure looked good. But even after his long rest, Rabbit was too lazy to stir himself. Who can I get to go for me, he thought. Then he saw Fox coming. Ah, Brother Fox, he said, your tail is fantastic. Flies can't touch you now. I bet you run faster with it than you ever did before without it. Yeah, said Fox, this tail piece does it. I'm fast now. I'm really fast. Brother Fox, said Rabbit, since you're so much faster than I am, would you run back and choose a fine tail for me? Why, sure, Brother Rabbit, said Fox. Be happy to do you the favor. Fox sprang off, but he stopped to match tails with every animal he met on the way. It took him twice as long as it would have taken Rabbit to get there. When Fox climbed up to Cave Luvimbi, all the animals except Rabbit had already been there. He looked around and didn't see any tails at all. But as he turned to go, he spotted a short fur piece caught in the crevice of a rock. How stubby, said Fox. Can't flick much with that, but it's the only one left. Well, a long tail goes well with my short ears, so maybe a short tail will go well with long ears. Fox took the tail and started back. From his web high in the tree branches, Spider saw Fox approaching. He could make out only one bushy tail waving as Fox came closer. Spider said nothing of this when he dropped down beside Rabbit. Where's your tail? Asked Spider. Don't worry, said Rabbit. It's coming. Fox arrived and dropped the small fur ball before Rabbit. Here's your tail, Brother Rabbit, said Fox. Not much of a tail, but it's all that was left. Still, it is a tail, and that's the style nowadays. Rabbit blinked his eyes. Here, said Fox. Let me help you put it on. Rabbit was too stunned to move. Fox flipped him across his knees and tapped the tail into place. That done, Fox didn't wait around for thanks. He winked at Spider and ran off, laughing as he went. Spider twirled back up to his web and sang under his breath, tails with which to flick and switch the flies away. Then he sang out loud and clear for Rabbit to hear. If you want a thing well done, go do it yourself. Uh-huh. But Spider's moral only made Rabbit madder. That sly fox, he cried. What took him so long, huh? That's why I came out on the short end of it. I'll get even with him. But that tale leads to other tales of Rabbit and Fox. And here's where this tale ends. For whether it's an animal's tale or a told tale, be it long or short, whatever the sort, all must come to an end. Uh-huh. This is your host, Kathryn Lopez Luker. We've just reached the end of our holiday stories. Join us next for a refreshing poetic interlude. You can find a link to our podcast on the Marshall Public Library webpage, www.marshallpl.org. I'll talk to you again soon.